Hey everyone and welcome to Storytime. My name is Jake and today we are going to be looking at the subreddit r/maliciouscompliance, where people conform to the letter but not the spirit of a request. I just want to quickly ask, if you're watching these videos quite often and you're not already subscribed, then please do hit subscribe down below. We only upload one video a day on this channel, so we're not spamming your box or anything, and it really does help support the channel. Never mess with a rancher. My father had the ultimate revenge/malicious compliance when I was a kid. I grew up on a horse ranch in Colorado. We had a long piece of property, about 80 acres, and we raised Missouri foxtrotters. We had lived there for almost 20 years when some folks bought a strip of property way at the back of our land. It was a strange plot of land as it was very narrow and was sandwiched between our back fence and a busy country road. We were surprised that anyone would buy it actually, as it forced the house to be pretty close to said road. Well, we never met these new neighbors until one day my dad gets a notice from a lawyer telling us that after having surveyed the property lines, our back fence encroaches on their property between 3 and 6 inches depending on the spot along the fence line. These folks had never met us, never introduced themselves. Our first introduction was this legal demand. My father was a salt of the earth kind of man. Very kind, but also very strong-willed. He called these folks, arranged a meetup, and tried to talk some sense into them. First, did 3 to 6 inches really matter that much? And why had they not come to us to talk it through? He even offered a number of different compromises. These folks were hostile from the get-go. They demanded he move the fence immediately, or they would sue. Apparently, the law stated they had to put their house so far away from our fence line, and they wanted to push it as far back from the road as they could when they built it, so they wanted that 6 inches very badly. I still remember when my dad got home from the meeting. He hung his hat up and shook his head when he told my mum in his slow way, "Well, looks like we got the kind of folks for neighbors you don't ever want to have for neighbors." They sued and won, and we were forced to move the fence in 2 weeks. I say we because I was the free slave labor, as farm kids are in this kind of thing. All that fencing material and the time were a big cost for my family, but we got the work done that late fall. Here is where the fun comes in. So the new neighbors broke ground and built all through the end of winter and into the spring. The very next weekend after they had moved into their house, Dad rousted me out of bed and we took the big truck into town to the lumber yard. I was extremely puzzled as we loaded a bunch of fencing material and building supplies. We didn't have any big projects going on that I knew about and kept asking him what it was for, but he just told me to wait and see with a devilish smile on his face. We built a pen and a small enclosure very near our back property line, directly behind the neighbor's new shiny house. The next day, one of our farm friends delivered a half-dozen pigs to their new home. Dad insisted on feeding those hogs table scraps and all the things that would go in the composter, as well as some good balanced hog feed to keep them healthy. Now, you may not know this, but the smell of pig excrement is directly related to what they eat, and their pen conditions. Table scraps make them smell bad. I mean bad. I had to drive the four-wheeler back there every day to take care of them, and within a month, halfway to the pen, and my eyes would start watering, it smelled so bad. When we mucked out the pen with the bobcat, we also made the pile right next to the pen. I can't even imagine how bad the smell was living in that house. The neighbors, of course, freaked out and again, without ever even trying to talk to us, went the legal route. They lost the case, asking to have the pen removed as the area was zoned agricultural, and my dad has done his homework to make sure he was not breaking any laws or regulations. The pigs were far enough from us and our other neighbors that it didn't bother anyone but the people he wanted it to bother. Come fall when winter moved in, we sold the pigs to slaughter, and Dad stacked up a bunch of building supplies next to the pen and let the neighbours know we would be expanding the profitable operation in the spring. He smiled the whole time, speaking in his slow, steady way as they screamed at him. The new neighbours sold their new house in January, when the ground was frozen and the new owners would not smell the pen. Though as soon as the old neighbours were gone, we tore down the enclosure, spread the nasty stuff on the hayfield, and the new neighbours never had any bad smell come spring. They also were great neighbours and are still lifelong friends. Never mess with a rancher. As soon as I read the word pigs, I was like, oh, I know where this is going. You won't listen to me and only want to go where you want to go? Have fun getting lost then. So every Friday 9 to 1 PM, I volunteer at a pretty large hospital in my area. I have done it for a little under a year and really enjoy it. I do tons of stuff there. Things like taking flowers, mail, or any assorted gifts to patients in their room or staff. Take lab samples from the units down the lab in the basement when the vacuum tubing that transports them quicker doesn't work, which is almost always in one unit or another. Pick up supplies from the warehouse. I take family members to see their family member who might be there as a patient. So I am pretty much an all-around, one-stop shop volunteer. Given the nature of what I do there, I pretty much have access to most of the hospital. This will come into play later. The list goes on of things we do, but the one thing that we do that doesn't happen that often is discharge patients. Usually, at the hospital, someone from the unit like a nurse or volunteer stationed there that would take them down to the exit or their car. When they get busy and can't make a discharge, they call us. Story time. So one day, about a month ago, I was sitting in the volunteer office talking with the other volunteers, when we get a call to discharge a patient. And I was tasked to do it. Great. Get to meet another person and work on my interpersonal skills, which are not the greatest. I look at the slip, and it's to a unit that is almost on the other side of the hospital. No biggie, some more steps in for me. I grab a wheelchair and it takes a good 8-ish minutes to get there. The door where the patient is closed, so I knock and get let in. I see a middle-aged woman I assume to be a daughter, and an older gentleman has to be around 90 years old, who was the patient. SL stubborn lady, OG older guy, and me. Hi, my name is OP. I'm here to take you home today, I say, talking to the patient. Before I get to say anything else, I get a remark from the stubborn lady, saying, "What took you so long? The nurse said she called 10 minutes ago." I respond, "Well, the volunteer office is on the other side of the hospital, so it took me that long to get here." She seemed satisfied with that response. I go ahead and get the older guy into the wheelchair, and I ask where the car is. The stubborn lady says that it is in the green garage, which is over by the volunteer office. Great, even more steps, I think to myself. So I start to go back the way I came, and stubborn lady doesn't seem to like this way. "Wait, where do you think you're going? The way is this way." She points in a different direction towards an elevator. The elevator she points to is a rather small elevator, not meant for patient transport, that goes to the second floor, which takes us to some large operating rooms and the main inpatient PACU, if you know what that is. It's largely for staff for a quick way from one floor to another. I'm pretty sure it's this way. That way doesn't go to the green garage. "Yes it does, I've been here many times and I know for a fact that it does." She is technically right, there is a way you can get there, but you have to go through quite a few keycard access only doors. The only way she would have come through that way is if she was escorted through. I do have access through this way too. The elevator you want to go in is not meant for patient transport, and I am not allowed in there with a patient. I don't care. I want to go this way. I am a customer, and the customer always comes first. She is starting to get irate at the moment, like a 3-year-old. Me, perplexed. This is a hospital, not a store. Patient safety comes first, and because of that, I am not allowed to go that way with a patient. What do you do here anyway? Are you like a nurse or something? No, I am a volunteer. I do a lot of things around the hospital. So you don't even work here. You must be new or something, because you don't seem to know your way around. Me, not wanting to take it further, agreed to go her way. After the "you must be new here" snippet, I had it, and I was done arguing. So we head into the cramped elevator with the older guy in his wheelchair, me and stubborn lady, and go up a floor. Just follow me, I'll show you the right way. Okay, whatever you say, I'm thinking. So we walk down this hallway with her in the lead, and me and the older guy behind her being quiet. After about a minute or so, we come across the first keycard door, which is the correct way. She tries to open it and it won't budge to a confused face. Then she notices the scanner and asks me to open it for her. Me, still upset at the way she's acting and maybe a bit petty, just says, "I can't, I don't have access through here," even though I did. "Oh, I remember, it was this way." We turn around to go back past the elevator and make a right down another hallway. This hallway has what appeared to be toward the way of the ORs based on the signs she had seemed to ignore. More locked doors, which I obviously don't have access to. Did you want to go back the way we came to now? Stubborn lady, clearly lost. No, I am sure the way is here somewhere. Alrighty then. We turn around again, making it back to the main hallway where the original elevator is. We continue in the direct opposite of the way we want to go. After a few more dead ends, I can tell older guy is getting aggravated with stubborn lady. "Karen," not her real name, "let's just go the way this nice lady wants to go. She seems to know where she is going." The stubborn lady stops, looks around at older guy, then me. She then looks around the maze of hallways and doors, looks down, and in a very defeated voice, she says, "Alright, we'll go her way." We go back down the elevator, and after 2 turns, it's a straight shot to the green garage. No one says a word until we get to the exit, and I ask stubborn lady to get the car and pull around. After she leaves, the older guy starts apologizing to me, saying that she's always like this. Stuff like that. We start a conversation, telling me about his life experiences, and he seemed to be a really nice guy. Stubborn lady pulls her car around, older guy gets in, and I just smile and wave them goodbye and wish them a nice weekend, as I do with all the discharges. I can just imagine how annoyed that older guy must have been. He's like, "Oh, not this again." Shoegate. I used to work for a shipping company, one of the big 2, in an office position. Our building had several different departments in it, but they were all non-customer facing. The office was in a quite nondescript office park. There was no sign except on the door itself. The building was locked and required a keypad entry. We only interacted with customers by phone and email. No Skype, no in-person. I worked there for 6 years and never saw a customer. The dress code was business casual, which, fine, I usually only wear skirts and dresses, so I look dressy anyway. In the summer, women could wear sandals, but nothing between the toes and nothing obviously beachy. Pretty reasonable. In summer 2012, I was just coming off disability, and was informed that a new policy was that we couldn't have more than 3 toes showing in our sandals. Why? No one knows. The 4th toe is clearly unreasonable. So I spend all weekend looking for sandals that I like that fit the recommendation. I hate peep toe shoes, and they look awful on me. So that was out. I finally found a really nice pair of wedge sandals that fit the bill and were $80. I arrive to work on Monday, and within the hour, I'm told that my shoes do not conform. I said they only show 3 toes. That's the rule I was given. No. Turns out the heel couldn't be higher than 3 inches. Platform than 1 inch. No flats, also unprofessional, no rubber soles, and if you were wearing shoes that covered your foot, mules, then the back of your foot could be out, but if your feet were out, the back of your foot had to be covered. Exceptions for doctor's notes, begrudgingly. So I was taken into a room and my shoes were measured. I have super high arches, so a heel is comfortable for me, and I chose wedges because they are more stable. The platform of my shoe was 1 inch and the heel was 3 inch, so I'm good, right? Well, the supervisor seemed frustrated, so then she says, "No wedges, they are not professional." I was like, what? So she pulls up the dress code online and shows me the example shoes. There are 4 good example shoes: a stiletto closed toe, a peep toe high heel, a block heel high heel closed toe, and kitten heel mules. She states that because there are no wedges, that I can't wear wedges. I point out that I can't wear a regular heel, and that there are no flat shoes shown. She tells me she'll discuss it with the group and have an answer for me tomorrow, and not to wear the shoes tomorrow. I'm like, screw this. I paid $80 for these shoes. I'm wearing them. So the next day, I come in the shoes, and she tells me with a sour face that the wedges are fine. However, she still doesn't think my shoe is appropriate. So tomorrow, I have to wear other shoes but bring these shoes so that all the supervisors could have a meeting about my shoe, with my shoe present. I'm angry. This is BS. This literally took up hours of my time over 2 days. Oh, but wait, I can escape the dress code shoes by having a doctor's note. I contact my orthopedist. I had had knee surgery the year before, not related to most recent disability, and talk to the nurse. I explain the whole situation and describe my shoe, and ask if she or the doctor think that this is an appropriate work shoe for after knee surgery. She said they definitely don't want me on high heels, and a wedge is fine. She also thought the whole situation was ludicrous, so she wrote a note, doctor signed, exempting me from the dress code shoes and allowing me to wear whatever shoes I deem comfortable. I had her fax me the note. We had e-fax. I forwarded the fax to both of my supervisors, who were among the group of 7 supervisors who would meet tomorrow about my shoe. Within a few minutes, both were glaring at me, but I never heard a goddamn thing about my shoes again. I also wore the shoes every day that summer, and then with tights through the winter because I'm petty AF. I'm sorry, that has to be the stupidest rule ever. They list like 4 shoes you're allowed to wear, you're only allowed to show 3 toes. What is this? I'm so confused. Hey everyone, I hope you all had a really good day and that you enjoyed that video. If you want to check out some other videos, then click on screen right now, or check out the playlist down below. If you enjoyed that video, then please do leave a like, and if you want to submit your own stories, then you can do so by joining the Discord in the top link in the description. But thank you so much for watching, and I will see you very soon.